Hi guys, welcome to my channel. How are y'all doing today? So here today on Abby the Witch, we are finally going to be doing my video on sigil magic. Now, I'm going to be keeping this video more 201 versus 101 in that I'm going to be talking about more how I personally activate and charge my sigils versus what sigils are and how to create sigils. However, I am briefly going to be going over those things. That's just not going to be the main focus of this video. So what are sigils? Sigils are simply symbols that are created by a practitioner, a witch, that are infused with magic to represent something or manifest something, basically. Sigils were made very popular by chaos magicians in the 20th century. However, magical symbols have been used for a long ass time. There are multiple ways to create sigils. How I typically use them is by the very popular method of taking the actual word that, I want to manifest or I want the sigil to represent. I cross out the vowels and I create a sigil with the leftover letters. Some witches cross out the double letters. I don't really do that. I'll just use that letter once. But yeah, I cross out all the vowels and then the leftover letters, I'll make a sigil out of that. That's all I'm really gonna say about what sigils are and how to create them, because there are just so many resources already available out there. You can look up what is a sigil, how to create a sigil, and you will get a multitude of resources telling you all about it. And because of that, I'm not even gonna bother really going more in depth about those things. So let's dive into what this video is mainly about, and that is sigil activation and charging. So activation versus charging. A lot of witches and practitioners view this as the same thing. They don't really think of it as being a necessary second step. They think that activation and charging could just be one and the same and like the same step after you create your sigil. But I think of this as two separate things, and I do it in two separate steps. I first learned the concept of these being two separate things from Saturnarium's channel. I have to really focus on saying that word. Saturnarium, her channel. She is a wonderful witchy lady. She has a really cool channel. She's on a break right now, I think, but she has a fabulous video on sigil activation and charging. I will link that down below. She really made me realize that that's already what I was doing, and that there's, it's not just the same thing what I'm doing. They're not the same thing. It's two separate things. And now I really consciously think of it as two separate steps. So how I see it, the difference between activation and charging is kind of like a phone. You can power your phone on, you can activate it, but you still have to plug it in and charge it, right? Or if you get a new phone, usually you can still power it on, but lots of times you have to plug it in and charge it for a while, okay? So that's kind of how I think of it with sigils. You can activate it or power it on by sending it out into the universe. And then you can charge it, plug it in, right? And make it as powerful as it possibly can be. Again, a lot of magical folks think of this as something you can just do all in one step, but this is just how me and some other witches view it. So how do I activate? After I create my sigil, that is when I will do the activation. And typically I will use the burning method of it. So what I do is I will create my, a rough draft of my sigil, and I will take that paper and I'll fold it up. Sometimes I'll fold it up 9 times if I can, or maybe even just 3 times. And I will burn it in my cauldron. And I will picture that going out into the universe and the universe accepting it. And that to me is really powering on and activating my sigil, okay? Before I burn my rough draft of my sigil, I will actually usually take a picture of it on my phone or do something to give me a picture of what it looks like, because I'll forget after I burn it. So lots of times I'll take a picture of that rough draft. I'll burn that paper. And then after I feel like the universe has received it and it's activated, I will look at that picture and I will do my final copy of that, of my sigil. I will usually put that final copy into my book of shadows. It can just be on any piece of paper. I've done a final copy of a sigil and hung it on my wall. Once you have that final copy and once you've charged it, which I'll get into charging it here in just a second, you can put that sigil anywhere. It's like a stamp. It's like a magical stamp at that point. Now there are other ways you can activate a sigil that I've utilized before as well. You can use blood magic. Absolutely. If you're someone that menstruates, I love to use my menstrual blood to activate things or to just do blood magic in general. Lots of times I would do that rough draft of that sigil and I will use some blood and I will just rub it onto that sigil and I can like envision it and really feel it activating and powering on. So really tell that sigil to activate with your blood. Really like picture it powering on and that will activate it. Blood is very powerful. If you are someone who doesn't menstruate, it doesn't have to be menstrual blood. You could prick your finger, whatever. Please, please, please be smart about it though. Okay, don't do anything silly. Don't hurt yourself. Just a little prick to the finger. You just need a couple drops of blood and that's perfect. Another method you could use to activate a sigil is sex magic. I have used this before too, where all you have to do is stare into the sigil as you're achieving orgasm, and that orgasm will activate your sigil. Especially if you, I know it's kind of hard like when you're in the heat of the moment, but to really like think about that sigil activating as you achieve that orgasm is, that intention is going to work through your orgasm and it is going to go into that sigil and activate it. Sex magic doesn't have to be with a partner. It can be, absolutely. That's wonderful. It can be by yourself too. All right, so that is how I activate my sigils. Now let's move on to charging. So again, this is after my sigil is already powered on, it's working. I just really want to really make it as powerful as I can. So once my sigil is in my book of shadows, or I have my final copy of it, I tend to use selenite to charge. I know a lot of witches view selenite as cleansing and really cleansing only, which is interesting. I view it as, it can be cleansing, but I really associate selenite with charging. I have used selenite to charge things like my sigils for a long time now, and it's worked wonderfully for me. So once I have it in my book of shadows or I have my final copy, I will put it on my altar and I will put my selenite on top of that sigil to really charge it. You can also use solar magic or sun magic. I love utilizing the sun for charging, especially this time of year, at least in the northern hemisphere, when it is getting super warm outside and the sun is out for much longer. I love to utilize the sun for charging. I think that heat, the sun rays, really charge. I really charge anything that you want to charge. It can be your sigil. I've charged tarot and oracle decks before using them. I've charged my crystals in the sun. I've done solar water, I've done sun water. So whatever you want to charge, including your sigil, you can utilize the sun to do that as well. Just place it in a really sunny spot and that heat and those sun rays will really charge it up. You can use, on the contrary, the full moon if you would like. I've used the full moon to charge things as well. Some people view the full moon as cleansing. I do not. I view the full moon as very powerful and charging energy. I view the dark moon more as cleansing, that dark abyss. I view it as kind of a clean slate and cleansing, but full moon is charging to me. I've charged crystals under the full moon as well. Moon water, we've all done moon water, I feel like. But yeah, you could absolutely put a new sigil under the full moon and charge it. You could use earth magic. I don't think I've ever done this before, but you could use earth magic to charge or maybe even activate too. You could bury something into the earth and then come back in a couple of days and grab it if you want to. If you're more of an earth witch, you could totally do that. and kind of picture it growing its power, kind of like a plant would if you buried it underground, like a seed. I've used other crystals and oils to kind of help charge a crystal. This is more to add more intention. For example, I just did a wealth sigil, right, for the Deadly Sins challenge. And when I was charging my wealth sigil, I used my selenite, but I also put aventurine next to it too, because to me that can represent wealth and money. That, you know, it's one of the many things that aventurine can represent. My cat is in my plant. Same thing with oil too. It just depends on the oil blend that I have. I think I actually use my oil too to help charge and activate my sigil. It can get a little confusing. Some things are a gray area. You could use them for both, especially if it's something that is adding intention. You can do it either way. You can do it while you're activating or charging. I do it while it's charging usually because it's just sitting out, right? So it's a perfect time to like infuse it with more intention. So again, I'll use my wealth sigil as an example. I put my aventurine and my selenite on it. So my selenite was charging it. My aventurine was adding that more intention. And then I put my money oil that I also made for that challenge on top of that sigil and infuse it with even more intention. You could also, I've done this as well, you could also use a figurine that you have. I have little figurines that I feel hold the energy of that deity or that archetype, that demon, that god, that goddess, whatever it is. I feel like those figurines hold that energy of that entity, right? Or that animal. I have little animal figurines too. So I've actually asked, I've asked the witch's devil, Baphomet, whoever you want to call him, that archetype, that spirit, to help me activate this sigil by simply placing the final copy close to that figurine. I've done this with all kinds of things too, jewelry, crystals. I've asked for, can you please help me with this? Can you please infuse this with your power? Can you please bless this? I utilize my figurines a lot for that kind of thing. So yes, you absolutely could put the final copy of that sigil next to the figurine that holds the energy of the deity you work with and ask them to help you charge it and activate it too if you wanted to. So once your sigil is fully charged, it's fully activated, and it is good to go, again, you could put this sigil anywhere. I've also made a protection sigil before too, and after I charged and activated it, I put it on all my wind chimes around my property. I've put it on my besom, my witch's broom. Yeah, you can put it anywhere you want. Now, I keep saying like your new sigil, charge your new sigil, but after a while, if you feel like that sigil needs a little oomph, you know, because you've used it so many times, you could absolutely recharge it, right? Again, think of it as a phone. You can power it in and charge it whenever you feel like it's necessary. It doesn't have to be just when it's new. So I hope you enjoyed this sigil video. I hope it was informative. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I know towards the end, those last few methods for charging can get a little confusing because you can kind of use them for both, but I hope it wasn't too confusing. I hope it was fairly straightforward. I think next week's video, I'm going to be doing a VR to Jasmine Ambrosia here on YouTube about the Witch's Devil and the different seasons of the Witch's Devil, but mainly just talking about the Witch's Devil. I just love that archetype. I love him. deity, energy, whatever you want to call it, and I'll get more into that in next week's video. Also, speaking of Jasmine, I finally got to meet her in person. She's fabulous. I do have a little video clip of us meeting, but unfortunately with me having an Android, I think she might have an iPhone or something, but she sent it to me and it's like super blurry, which is fine. It's whatever. I meant to take like a selfie with us together. I adore her and she's very cool. And yeah, we got to meet, and it's just funny because we didn't even know we were in the same city. Like, we live down the road from each other. We're basically neighbors. And recently found that out, so we've been we've been meeting up, and it's been really cool. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for this week's video. And until next time, I hope you stay very well, and don't forget to follow the snake. Thank you. Love you. Bye. Activate and charge my Sigils. Really? Sigils. And she really made me realize that that's already what I was doing. She really made me realize, how'd you go? Hi, Bubby. Is he over here? This is my Bubby Toots. You can just see his little tail. There you go, little kid.